Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The sheriff who charged Andrew Cuomo denies that the investigation is politically motivated. He accuses the court system of leaking the criminal complaint and says he didn't want everyone to know what his team is doing. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach former President Trump, is not seeking re-election. Trump seems to be happy, saying 2 down, 8 to go. 8,000 employees. That's how many stand to lose their jobs at the Mayo Clinic over the center's vaccine mandate. We bring you more on why it was imposed and the protest that followed. In an effort to accelerate cargo movement in Southern California, carriers will be charged a fee for having shipping containers linger too long. A supply chain expert gives us her thoughts on how to alleviate the crisis. A survey indicates some white students are lying about belonging to a racial minority. They say they think it makes it easier to get into college. The Albany County Sheriff is defending his decision to charge Andrew Cuomo for forcible touching. The sheriff says they've been investigating Cuomo since August 5th, when Cuomo was still the New York governor.
Investigators have.
Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple said Friday he did not expect the criminal complaint to be released to the public this early. And he didn't want everybody to know exactly what the investigative team was doing. He believes the court system leaked it. Apple says his team has conducted a comprehensive and methodical investigation over the past 4 months. He says they have overwhelming evidence, and the victim has been very cooperative. The criminal complaint accuses Cuomo of a misdemeanor sex crime for putting his hand under a woman's shirt last December. The sheriff didn't talk to the district attorney or Cuomo's attorney before filing the charge, but he says the document was leaked before his meeting with the DA. The district attorney's office has been doing its own investigation on Cuomo. The sheriff denies that the investigation is politically motivated. He says his team is just doing their job. Cuomo will have to appear before the Albany City Court on November 17th. The sheriff says Cuomo will be processed, fingerprinted, photographed, and then presumably released.
New York Attorney General Letitia James is running for governor. The 63-year-old is the first candidate to challenge fellow Democrat Kathy Hochul, who replaced Andrew Cuomo this summer. In her campaign announcement, James explains what values she's running on.
Today, I am announcing my campaign to be your next governor.
Letitia James is running for governor for good-paying jobs, a healthcare system that puts people ahead of profits, to protect the environment, make housing more affordable, and lift up our schools in every neighborhood.
Early polling suggests Governor Hochul has a modest advantage. But the 2022 New York gubernatorial election could become a contentious one for Democrats. Elected in 2018, James is in her first term as Attorney General. Her office investigated sexual harassment claims against former Governor Cuomo, which led to his resignation. A spokesperson for Cuomo issued a statement on Friday accusing James of using her office for political gain. He posted a tweet quoting, "Law and politics are totally separate, and this is a toxic intersection of the two," and claiming, quote, Tish James used her office to attack the governor for her own political benefit. James began her political career as a member of the New York City Council from her native Brooklyn and was elected in 2013 as the city's public advocate. And Congressman Adam Kinzinger announces that he is not seeking re-election this year. He has been a vocal critic of former President Trump and was among the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach Trump in January. NTD's Melina Wisecup brings us the details from Washington, D.C.
Representative Kinzinger elaborated a bit on his decision to not seek re-election. He says that one of the reasons is because of the strong divide here on Capitol Hill that he says he's witnessed, and he says he's seen no desire to bridge that divide. Kinzinger posted a video on Twitter saying serving 6 terms in Congress has been an honor of a lifetime, and that this isn't the end of my political future, but the beginning. He was first elected to Congress in 2009.
I also remember during that campaign saying that if I ever thought it was time to move on from Congress, I would. And that time is now. But let me be clear. my passion for this country has only grown.
Kinzinger focuses on partisan division in his video. He and Congresswoman Liz Cheney are the only two Republicans on the January 6th committee, appointed by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Kinzinger has repeatedly said he stands by his decision to impeach Trump over the events of January 6th.
In this day, to prevail or survive, you must belong to a tribe. Our political parties only survive by appealing to the most motivated and the most extreme elements within it.
Trump reacts to Kinzinger's announcement, saying in a statement, 2 down, 8 to go. He's referring to Kinzinger and Congressman Anthony Gonzalez, another Republican who voted to impeach Trump. Gonzalez is also not seeking re-election. Some outlets speculate that Kinzinger may be resigning partly because of Illinois' new congressional map after redistricting. According to the latest map released Friday, Kinzinger will be in the same district as his Republican colleague, Darren LaHood, who didn't vote to impeach Trump. Kinzinger didn't specifically say what he'd be working on in the future, but he did say that in order to break the narrative, he says he can't focus on running for Congress again and focus on, quote, a broader fight nationwide. Back to you, Steph.
Thanks, Melina. And a federal judge in D.C. is siding with people who sued the Biden administration over its vaccine mandates. The judge blocked the administration from firing unvaccinated workers who have pending religious exemptions.
20 workers, including both civilians and members of the military, filed the lawsuit last month. They are challenging Biden's mandate requiring all federal workers and contractors to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The plaintiffs say that because of this rule, they face termination, discharge, or separation on or before November 22nd. U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotley issued a temporary restraining order in the case on Thursday. She writes, "None of the civilian employee plaintiffs will be subject to discipline while his or her request for a religious exemption is pending. In addition, active duty military plaintiffs whose religious exemption requests have been denied will not be disciplined or separated during the pendency of their appeals." The judge is also asking all executive branch secretaries to issue memos by Friday that they will not terminate or penalize staff while religious exemptions are being heard. Plaintiff's attorney Michael Yoder praises the judge's ruling. He says, "We are one step closer to putting the Biden administration back in its place by limiting government to its enumerated powers. It's time citizens and courts said no to tyranny." Also on Thursday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sued the Biden administration over the same vaccine mandate.
And the FDA today paved the way for children ages 5 to 11 to get Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. The FDA cleared kid-sized doses for emergency use. That's just 1/3 of the amount given to teens and adults. Up to 28 million more American children could be eligible for vaccinations as early as next week. And the Mayo Clinic's vaccine mandate could lead to 8,000 employees being fired. The clinic's headquarters sent warning letters to those employees who haven't gotten the vaccine. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more on that and the protests that took place earlier this week opposing the mandate.
For over 4 hours, protesters took to the streets of Rochester, Minnesota on Monday. The Med City Beat reported that the Mayo Clinic has about 8,000 employees that are unvaccinated. Some of those risk termination as the nonprofit medical center is complying with Biden's federal vaccine mandate. One employee published her resignation letter on Facebook. She says she's not an anti-vaxxer and has had many vaccines and that she believes in science, but she says she doesn't believe in politics becoming involved in personal health choices. She says the Mayo Clinic is falling victim to, quote, communism. Some of the protesters held signs saying 2020, heroes, 2021, fired. Employees who haven't gotten the shot will be placed on unpaid leave on December 3rd, and they'll be fired by January 3rd next year if they still haven't been vaccinated. The Mayo Clinic did not immediately respond to NTD's request for comment. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
And 10 states filed a lawsuit Friday to stop President Joe Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for federal contractors, arguing that the requirement violates federal law. Attorneys general from Alaska, Arkansas, Iowa, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming signed on to the lawsuit. which was filed in a federal district court in Missouri. And with illegal immigration staying at record levels, several veterans groups from around the country have gathered at the southern border. And some congressional candidates from around the country are also there. They say they want to see the situation for themselves. NTD's Jason Perry is there on the scene. Jason, can you tell us how things are going?
Hello, Steph. Since we've been here, we've seen about 20 to 30 illegal immigrants coming over this hill right here, and they're being picked up by Customs and Border Protection agents and taken to other facilities. There are several issues that have been brought up during this event. Some don't want to see Customs and Border Protection agents get fired because they aren't vaccinated. Others are concerned that the increase in illegal immigration is causing an increase in human trafficking. And just a little while ago, the people here locked arms and formed a human wall to connect this large gap of unfinished wall.
Look at this. This is a border that is in crisis. We have people that are coming through all the time that are unvaccinated. They aren't tested for COVID. We have no idea. They're bussed in and then flown to other regions in the country.
147 miles of this border wall was built by Admiral Chuck Kubik, who is one of our, he's our board member in our organization. And he built 147 miles of this wall, and we wanted to come out here and give a tour of, what all happened and how they were able to accomplish that. But their contract was for 200 miles. Well, when the administration got changed, all of that got canned.
Just witnessing right now about 30 immigrants crossing over right now, and seeing the children and everything. I hope that there's some kind of oversight going on about everything that's happening here.
So until we finish this wall, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, we cannot have a meaningful conversation about how to fix our immigration issues until that happens first.
I also spoke to a federal contractor who transports immigrants on the border. He said he comes under the vaccine mandate and has been vaccinated, but he believes that it should be a choice. He wasn't concerned about the wall being finished because he said once the illegal immigrants cross the river and are on American soil, they will have the right to due process under American law. He says for illegal immigration to really slow down, the Remain in Mexico policy has to be enforced. We reached out to Customs and Border Protection for comment, but we haven't heard back yet. Back to you, Steph.
Thanks, Jason. And the Biden administration is launching a second bid to end the Remain in Mexico policy. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says the policy likely reduced illegal border crossings in 2019, but with substantial and unjustifiable human costs. At the same time, the administration reaffirmed a commitment to reinstate the policy under court order while continuing its appeal in the case. And President Biden met with his French counterpart today to discuss European defense in the Indo-Pacific region. That's after Biden clarified there was no hostility between the United States and France.
The calm regains after the storm between the U.S. and France. President Emmanuel Macron said his meeting with President Biden on Friday would allow the two countries to rebuild trust and that it was key to look to the future. That's after Macron and his government were left infuriated on September 15th by the deal which resulted in Australia scrapping a mega defense deal for French submarines. Biden said the US had been clumsy over the submarine deal. At the time, Macron's government said it had been stabbed in the back by its close allies, upset by the manner in which the affair undermined France and Europe's role on the global stage. The two leaders shared a warm handshake for the cameras after Biden kept Macron waiting for more than 1.5 hours. They discussed climate, counterterrorism in West Africa, and European defense.
Universities across the U.S. have stated the goal of achieving diversity in their classrooms. But some students are gaming the system. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
It turns out some white students are lying in their college application, saying they belong to a racial minority. They think they'll actually have better chances of getting accepted into the college if they pose as belonging to a minority group. Intelligent.com surveyed over 1,200 white Americans. Almost 35% of them said they lied about belonging to a racial minority in order to get into college. Out of those who lied, 85% were successful and got admitted.
This kid that went to my high school, he did that. He said he was of Asian descent, but he really wasn't.
That's kind of racist, I think.
The reason these students lie is because of diversity targets many schools follow, which aim to recruit more minorities. Critics say students with lower grades might be favored because they belong to a minority group. So according to students, how should that be handled?
I think the quota should come in when it's two people who have similar grades, and that's when it should be like, okay, we should take the person who is like of a different race or who's like brown or black.
She added that if a white person has better grades, then that person should be picked. But some people think students with lower grades should be considered too.
And you don't know why, the reason they have those low grades.
So just because they have like those low grades doesn't mean they don't excel in other like capabilities.
And some students said while diversity is desirable, trying to force it can be counterproductive.
Obviously, diversity is what everyone wants, and it's what makes this country as amazing as it is. But at the same time, making it forced like that, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of just highlighting, like, we're naturally a diverse society on our own. We don't need a quota or a specific stat to meet that criteria.
Some of the people I spoke with had a different opinion, saying that diversity targets are good and should be in place. But they all agreed on one thing, which is that lying to get someone else's benefits is of course not the right thing to do. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Up next, small businesses in Atlanta are getting ready for Game 3 of the World Series tonight. An estimated 80,000 people will be in the neighborhood. And Tesla now joins the elite club of trillion-dollar companies after landing its largest car order this week. But one analyst questions if a downfall is possible in the future. That and more when we come back on NTD News. Business owners in Atlanta are getting ready for tonight's World Series game. Despite missing out on the All-Star game in July, small businesses around the baseball park are now preparing for a sales spike. NTD's Chenny Wu has more.
The championship baseball games between the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros are in Atlanta's Truist Park starting Friday. Local business owners are excited for the additional foot traffic.
So we're really looking forward to a huge spike. We've been buying extra stuff all week long,
so we're expecting a pretty significant uptick on what our normal sales would be on a Friday or Saturday, probably somewhere in the range of 60 to 80% more sales-wise.
The anticipated All-Star game in July was moved out of Atlanta due to protests against Georgia's election reforms. Will Wilkinson, assistant manager of River Street Suites, says the World Series game will make up for that to some extent.
But it does help us, sort of get over the feeling of being hurt about the whole situation. Like, well, we didn't get the All-Star game, but hey, we got the World Series. And honestly, which one's more important in the long run? When it fell through for the reasons it did, it was greatly disappointing for us. We felt like we were kind of being punished.
An estimated 80,000 people will be in the city for the games. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
The Port of Los Angeles announced today that all their port terminals are open and operational, with 18 vessels in port. A supply chain expert shares her thoughts with NTD's David Lamb on how to move forward from the shipping crisis.
On Friday, the Port of Los Angeles reported that nearly 40% of import containers, like the one you see behind me, are idling on terminals for at least 9 days, which is twice as long as it was pre-pandemic.
Unfortunately, we all wish that it would end tomorrow, but we predict that it's probably not going to resolve itself until sometime next year.
Murphy is the founder and CEO of Global Gateway Logistics freight forwarding firm. She started the firm in 2017. She says that port workers are overworked.
Quite honestly, I think the solution to extend gate hours from the administration, it was almost like kind of putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
She said when there's a lack of space at terminals to take empty containers, extending hours won't be enough to solve the supply chain crisis. Murphy believes that companies themselves should pivot. She tells her clients to look into alternative shipping ports.
What we try to tell importers and exporters is look at alternatives. Alternative modes of transport for much needed urgent items, so air freighting items that might not be able to make it in time for, let's say, the Christmas season, shopping season.
She recommends changing points of imports and exports, making sure to demand a high level of customer service from freight forwarders, such as looking into strategies.
Consolidating freight overseas to really maximize space in a container, to be flexible with price and timing, to do things like transloading and trucking versus the rail. As we know, rail has been extremely congested and delayed this year as well.
The LA Harbor Commission just approved a container excess dwell fee plan on Friday to improve cargo movement. The port will charge ocean carriers $100 for every container that sits on the terminal after a period of time. And Murphy also talked about the shutdowns of the overseas manufacturers, such as the energy crisis that hit China a few weeks ago. And for people who will be shopping for furniture or tailor-made items for Christmas, Murphy suggests asking the supplier ahead of time for the actual shipping times. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Supply chain problems are hurting Apple too. Quarterly estimates missed, and it's afraid it won't meet demand this holiday season. NTD's Evelyn Lee reports.
Apple didn't quite hit Wall Street expectations this past quarter, but revenue was still up almost 30%, and each of its product categories also grew on an annual basis.
We estimate these constraints had around a $6 billion revenue dollar impact, driven primarily by industry-wide silicon shortages and COVID-related manufacturing disruptions. Even so, we set an all-time record for Mac and quarterly records for iPhone, iPad, wearables, home, and accessories, representing 30% year-over-year growth in products.
With sales exploding for iPhones, iPads, and Macs, not only this past quarter, Apple's currently seeing significant growth, but there were also larger supply constraints than expected. Apple CEO Tim Cook says that it's mostly because of the industry-wide chip shortage.
They're going to be short about 10 million iPhones, and this is really something that's unprecedented for Apple, and it speaks to what's happening, the worst supply chain crisis that we've seen in the last 30 years.
Apple says it expects solid year-over-year growth despite even worse supply chain constraints. Cook expects the December quarter to be the company's largest in history in terms of revenue, but Ives says supply won't be able to keep up.
Yeah, right now, inventory going into holidays will be about 70% lower than normal for Apple. I believe if you don't order an iPhone, either in the store or online, by call it the third week in November, right around Thanksgiving, you will not be getting an iPhone for Christmas under the tree.
Ives doesn't think that supply chain issues will get better for Apple until next February or March. And until then, there will be massive shortages. This is the first quarter that Apple failed to beat earnings estimates since 2016. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Facebook yesterday changed its company's name to Meta, with a new company logo that resembles the infinity symbol. While some are supportive, others have suggested that the rebranding is because of whistleblower scandals.
Proud to announce
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg changed his company name to clarify the identity of the company. He said Facebook has become the most used platform in world history, but Facebook's name can't possibly represent everything they are doing today. People have mixed feelings about the rebranding.
This is actually the first time I'm hearing of the rebrand. I actually deactivated my Facebook about a year and a half ago.
All the same people work there, and I imagine especially so at the top of the ladder, so it seems like the same company to me.
Alan Adamson, co-founder of Metaforce, is aware that it's a bad time to change Facebook's name, but he encourages people to look forward to it.
Look at the future, look at the metaverse.
However, people are skeptical about the transformation. Kirsten Martin, a writer of A Case on the Ethics of Facebook's Content Moderation Algorithm, questions why Facebook executives should trust Facebook in the virtual world when their products have not been proven to be trustworthy in the real world.
Facebook's name change to Meta is odd given its timing. We just found out details through the Facebook files of how much trouble they're having with their content moderation in the real world with Facebook and the impact that it has on our lives, given whether it's vaccines or the insurrection or just hateful speech.
Some have speculated that the change is related to the whistleblower scandal.
Doing it now makes people feel like he's trying to create a distraction, even though this may have been his vision for a long time.
Despite the controversy, Facebook will launch a new Meta smartwatch and continue to promote the brand. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Tesla landed its largest ever car order this week and zoomed past $1 trillion in market value. As the market value for companies grows, one analyst asks what the marketplace should look out for in the future.
Tesla recently surpassed $1 trillion in market capitalization or market value. The milestone comes after the company landed its largest order ever from car rental company Hertz on Monday. Hertz said it will buy 100,000 Tesla vehicles by the end of 2022. Elon Musk expressed his surprise, writing in a Twitter post, "Wild times." However, a Santa Monica, California-based automotive information services company questions if and when there will be a downfall in value.
I think that this is one where we almost expect it to happen, right? They just keep on making more and more money. The valuation gets higher and higher. And really, I think the opposite is what we're looking for. Is there going to be a downfall?
Tesla reached this milestone 18 years after its founding. It now joins Google, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft corporations in the elite club of trillion-dollar companies.
We've got one of the oldest rental car agencies in the United States. They went bankrupt, and now they're going to hook up with one of the newest automakers in the business and full EV at the same time. So I think for a lot of people, it's a lot to digest.
Tesla shares surged as much as 14.9%, making it the world's most valuable automaker, according to Reuters calculations based on its latest filing. Musk set an annual sales growth of 50%, eventually reaching 20 million vehicles a year. This would be more than twice the volume of current car sales leaders Volkswagen and Toyota.
Coming up, as CCP virus cases continue to increase in China, authorities are installing new high-tech devices on the doors of their citizens' homes. How do they work and why are they used? And in parts of China, locals are running low on food amid another quarantine. Some are confined in hotels and they have to pay for everything out of pocket. That and more on NTD News after the break.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? We're spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years? Even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year. Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Has quarantine enforcement gone too far in China? Authorities are installing a high-tech surveillance device on doors to people's homes. It alerts authorities if anyone inside opens their door or tries to leave. The new enforcement measure comes as parts of China are seeing an increase in new virus cases. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
Chinese authorities are amping up pandemic prevention and control measures to unprecedented levels, now with the help of high-tech gear. They are now installing surveillance devices on doors and entrances to residents' homes that will alert authorities if anyone in the home so much as opens their door. Devices are being used to enforce lockdowns and quarantines in certain communities and districts. Chinese media reported that the director of one district in China's Gansu province called the devices extremely useful. With them installed, the moment a quarantine resident opens their door, the director will be alerted. Then all he has to do is make a phone call, and the resident can be dealt with. China has been practicing what it calls a zero-case policy. Even when only one confirmed case emerges in a given area, the whole neighborhood will be put under quarantine. Sometimes residents there will be made to stay home or go elsewhere in quarantine. In some extreme cases, that quarantine can last for months. Reports of the devices have caused a stir online. One netizen criticized the surveillance tactic, saying what authorities are doing equates to turning people's homes into prisons. Reports include Chinese authorities deploying these devices en masse. In one southern province, local media outlets say more than 17,000 of them have been installed. The CCP virus attacks North China again. Authorities confirmed positive COVID-19 cases in the northeastern province of Heilongjiang earlier this week. The hotspot city, Heihe, declared a lockdown immediately and started massive tests on its 1.5 million people. Public transit and cab services are currently canceled.
The city is now under lockdown. There is no exit nor entry to the city. That's the situation. All the shops are closed. When to open and when not to is up to the Pandemic Control Office.
Soon after, multiple cities in the same province escalated their control measures. And another outbreak that started with a tour group has now spread to half of all Chinese provinces, including Beijing, and it keeps expanding. For the first time during this outbreak, a community worker in Beijing has tested positive. And starting Thursday, the city began vaccinating children as young as 3.
A county in China's Inner Mongolia is under extended mandatory quarantine. Locals there may be facing a dire situation, with some saying they're running low on food. Though it seems the Chinese authorities aren't too concerned. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Amid mandatory quarantines and lockdowns in parts of China, residents report they're running low on food, and the authorities are doing little to help. That's the situation in an Inner Mongolia county. The county, Yijin Banner, is currently labeled high risk for the virus, according to state-owned media CCTV, and many places there are under lockdown. A visitor to Yijin Banner tells the Epoch Times that he has been in a hotel under quarantine for more than 10 days, and it's getting harder and harder to get food. The newspaper gave him a pseudonym to protect his identity.
Since the 21st, the government has been sending a free boxed meal a day. For the rest of the meals, we order takeout ourselves. But now there are fewer and fewer takeout vendors because those restaurants have fewer and fewer supplies.
Mr. Wu says he has to pay for everything out of pocket, and no one has told him how much longer he will be quarantined.
If this goes on, the situation may become more and more problematic because the restaurants can't buy supplies either. Supermarkets are not even open as of the 25th.
A resident of Yijin Banner tells the Epoch Times that he also doesn't have enough food.
After today, it will be 10 days since quarantine started. The government provided a meal and some instant noodles for free, as well as some ham and a face mask. It's definitely not enough, but what can you do?
On the day of the interview, Beijing's National Health Commission reported that more than half of the total cases in China are from Inner Mongolia.
Coming up, German police are reintroducing border controls as thousands of migrants cross into Poland from Belarus, heading toward Germany. Residents of the East European country of Moldova are worried they will be left without gas as winter approaches. The Prime Minister says the country could not afford the tripling of prices by Russia, which the EU calls a weaponization of the gas supply. That and more after the break. Thousands of migrants in recent weeks have tried to enter Poland from Belarus and continue their way to Germany to claim asylum. Germany has expanded its police force patrolling the border and is considering reintroducing controls. NTD's Kos Temenes has the story.
German federal police officers run daily patrols on the bridge connecting the Polish town of Słubice with Frankfurt an der Oder in Germany. Authorities have put an extra 800 police officers on the Polish border to deal with the uptick in the number of people illegally entering the country in recent weeks.
The situation remains dynamic and also tense and demanding for our colleagues who check and search here every day.
He says the absolute majority comes from Belarus. Thousands of people in recent weeks from the Middle East, Africa and Afghanistan have tried to enter Poland from Belarus and continue through to Germany. Many EU states accuse Minsk of sending illegal migrants across the border into the EU to put pressure on the bloc. At the Germany border in Frankfurt, most want to be called and claim asylum.
It is actually the case that they do not try to hide at all, that they enter by just crossing the city bridge in Frankfurt by foot, and are also eager to be checked and recognized by police officers, so that they can then present a request for asylum here.
On some days, officers pick up several hundred people a day. Germany has registered over 6,000 migrants so far. The Interior Minister says Germany is considering reintroducing controls at the border. Kostemanes, NTD News.
Moldova may get left without Russian gas before the onset of winter. Russia's Gazprom threatened it will stop deliveries to the ex-Soviet republic if it does not sign a new contract by the 1st of December. The Moldovan Prime Minister says the country could not afford the prices Russia is now offering, which have gone up threefold. This report from NTD's Eddie Aitken.
The European Union's top diplomat said on Thursday that Moscow was using natural gas to bully the Eastern European nation of Moldova.
Price increases, not in Europe, but in the whole world, is not, in general terms, consequences of a weaponization of the gas supplies. In the case of Moldova, yes, it is.
Moldova's gas contract with Russia's Gazprom expired at the end of September. Its prime minister said Gazprom was not offering the government the traditional annual rollover of a previous 30-year contract, but instead a threefold price increase. She said the country could not afford the prices Russia was now offering.
The price increase for Moldova is just extraordinarily stark. You know, it has increased threefold and set to increase fourfold if we buy everything on the spot market. The country cannot afford this politically, economically, or socially.
The Kremlin on Wednesday denied that Gazprom, which is majority state-owned, was using gas to try to extract political concessions. Moldova is governed by a pro-Western government of President Maia Sandu, who defeated the former Moscow-backed president in an election last November. Gazprom is now threatening Moldova to stop deliveries if the country does not sign a new contract on the 1st of December. Moldova has declared a state of emergency. Many Moldovans are now worried that they will be left without gas before the onset of winter.
We don't know yet how we're going to get along. Now we have an electric heater working and we can turn it on to keep warm. But in winter, when the temperature is much lower, this will not be possible. It is impossible to keep warm with one single heater.
The EU this week said it would give Moldova £50 million by the end of the year to deal with the crisis. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Vivian, the French bulldog owned by the late Sir David Amess, the British MP stabbed to death while meeting constituents earlier this month, was named the Westminster Dog of the Year on Thursday. NTD's Joanna Conway reports.
In memory of Sir David Amess.
In tribute to the late Sir David Amess, the winner of Westminster Dog of the Year was awarded to his dog on Thursday, opposite the Houses of Parliament.
There's somebody who would have been here who's not, and that is, of course, David Amess, and his beloved French bulldog, Vivian, who was undoubtedly going to be part of this great event.
MPs Andrew Rossendale and Mark Francois collected the trophy with Vivian, who wore a City of Southend neckerchief, the constituency Amess represented.
David was a great animal lover. He was renowned for it. So I think Andrew and I like to think that he's up in heaven now, smiling down at the fact that Vivian has won.
Andrew Rossendale further highlighted Amos's advocacy for animal welfare and parliamentarian support to continue his efforts.
Mark and I and many other colleagues will continue David's work to ensure that we are the country in the world that has the highest standards of animal welfare, and that's always what David fought for, and it should be his legacy.
Boris Johnson tweeted his congratulations to Vivian on Thursday and said Sir David would have been very proud. Joanna Conway, NTD News.
Coming up, fifth-tier Welsh football club Wrexham welcomes its new Hollywood owners. Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds share their dreams of climbing to the Premier League. And in Japan, the once beautiful beaches of Okinawa are now buried under a blanket of pumice. The volcanic rocks are causing problems in port and may be spreading to other parts of Japan. We have more when we return with NTD News.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Art is something we most often expect to find on the walls of an art gallery. Yet many in the fields of health and wellness know of art's powerful ability to help us deal with the many challenges of life, including illness, addiction, and finding happiness. NTD's Kay Rubacek has the story.
It's not cast iron, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I only deal with the cast iron.
I started it was all kind of purely selfish.
It's like fire shut up in your bones. You can't not do it.
Functional works of art.
That's what I like to say.
I create things that are beautiful.
I thought, I can do that.
It can be a call to action.
It increases your confidence. It says what your words can't say.
Do you feel like a magician sometimes?
Yes, yes, and I'm afraid to tell anybody that.
When people see beautiful things, endorphins start to happen and there's this emotion that comes about. All that is sparked because art did it.
We sing before we speak. We dance before we walk.
You want to keep living, so you got to get creative.
That's what makes it the challenge.
It kind of, when I hurt my back and had to retire, it was almost like my life was over. I had to have 2 back surgeries. I had to stop. My doctor said it stopped working or not walk anymore. I became dependent on opiates, and then the depression sits in. You know, I'm gonna stop these drugs and see if I'm hurting, see if I need them, and I didn't. So you get it like this, and then you...
And I'll make it like I'm about to show you. The beautiful door design. See the simple design. I call this the little peekaboo glass over here, so you can check it in the morning. You got an eagle here, there's bears.
So we use the arts in many ways to support their resilience and their well-being. You know, wonder, why are we creating and dedicating a program like this? Some people may see a trained professional musician playing music in a public lobby or atrium or of a hospital and call that music therapy. But that's not music therapy. Just as, you know, someone sitting and drawing a picture, it's art, but it's not art therapy. Most art and music therapy, or art and music therapy I should say, is rooted in the mental health profession.
And give them voice. I think, yes, it's a good thing. And one of the hard parts was the misperception of what music therapy was. Oh, you're going to sing me a happy song? You know, oh, what a beautiful, when I've just been diagnosed with an incurable disease. What can music do for that? Now, those were times when I wondered myself, how is this going to make a difference? But the truth is, we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Tune in to Life and Times every week on NTD Television.
Welsh football club Wrexham finally welcomes its new owners from the other side of the Atlantic. Hollywood stars Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds have big plans for the club. They dream of taking it to the Premier League. NTD's Eddie Aitken brings us this report.
The new owners of Welsh football club Wrexham are determined to turn the non-league team into a global force. Hollywood stars, co-owners Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought the club in February from the supporters who had owned the fifth-tier league outfit.
Our goal is to get us back in the league and continue our way upwards, and that's going to take some time. So, yeah, I don't think I'm reticent to get into the pie in the sky type of stuff, but the perfect ending's promotion.
Reynolds is a star of superhero comedy movie Deadpool, and McElhenney is the creator of TV series It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They assured Wrexham's fans that they were 110% committed to the team and in it for the long haul.
And the fact that the club has been around for 160 years and will be around for another 160 years, and that's really important to us, so that we want to win right now while we're alive, and we also want to set up the structure for the club to continue to win long after we're dead.
McElhenney said they were aware their lofty global ambitions had produced some mockery, but he was reassured by his conversations with supporters that his dream is worth pursuing. The Wrexham co-owners watched their team for the first time at Maidenhead United on Tuesday, but there was no happy ending on that occasion as the Red Dragons lost 3-2.
I loved every second of it, but it certainly had its moments of agony. Normally I'm only heckled in my home, so this was that was sort of new for me and sort of weirdly thrilling.
The co-owners recognize success won't come quickly, but are excited to grow the club together with the community. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Soon, visitors to Amsterdam may spot a self-driving watercraft the size of a small car cruising silently through its ancient canals. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
This is the electric-powered rowboat. It's a catchier name than autonomous floating vehicle, part of a project to transform use of the city's waterways for the better.
So we have a lot of road traffic and congestion, e-commerce logistics that is cluttering the small streets in the inner city, while at the same time we have a lot of open water available in the canals that is not being used anymore for transport, only for tourists.
One of the first test applications of the craft will be for trash collection. Dump trucks on the city's narrow streets are a safety hazard and cause traffic congestion. Instead, rowboats stationed at the waterside will act as floating trash containers.
And we only need about 140 different containers placed near the quay walls, and then several smart rowboats picking up these container boats and bring them to the waste collection company in the port of Amsterdam.
The rowboat is not allowed to enter the city's normal water traffic with passengers yet, but longer term, the medium-sized and slightly boxy frame of the 2,600-pound craft can be used for passenger, trash, and transport models.
With the software that we developed, you can plan your route. So if you want to go from A to B, it automatically calculates the most efficient route to sail. Then when it's sailing, it senses and maps the environment.
Rowboat was developed so that different units can be linked together. Linking rowboats will be able to create more structures, like barges or temporary bridges. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
In Okinawa, Japan, some of the country's best beaches are now covered in billions of pumice pebbles. The stones are believed to come from an underwater volcanic eruption, and they're damaging ports and fishing boats. NTD's Chenny Wu has the story.
A local Japanese artist filmed herself trying to swim in water jammed with volcanic pumice stones. She said the waves of pumice have been littering coastlines in the prefecture for more than 2 weeks.
You can see what it's like. The accumulation is at least around 30 centimeters. You cannot swim here. It's so thick that I feel it's life-threatening.
The stones are believed to have traveled nearly 1,000 miles in the water following an eruption that took place in August. Japanese officials say that the stones have already damaged around 30 ports and have also stranded many ships. Some ferry services between the islands had to be temporarily suspended.
Fishing ports are covered with pumice, so boats cannot leave. Also, the farmed fish and fish ponds died because they swallowed the pumice. In the tourism industry, snorkeling tours have been canceled.
The prefectural government began excavating around 20,000 pounds of pumice every day, aiming to complete the cleanup operation in the coming 2 to 3 weeks. However, researchers say the current may sweep the stones toward other coasts in Japan. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.